Hi, I'm Kent. In this video, I'm going to do a poor man's version of Underglaze. So in a recent video, I made these pots. These were made by applying tape to the pots, then glaze, and then removing the tape. Removing the tape selectively removed the glaze. I wasn't sure if this would work with glaze, and I think I got some interesting effects, but I figured using underglaze would be even better. Unfortunately, I don't actually have any underglaze. All I have is slip. So what I'm going to do in this video is try using my slip. Can I apply the slip to my pots and create similar types of effects? I've been doing a little bit of reading to see if I can turn slip into underglaze, and the answer seems to be no. It seems that underglaze is some special stuff. There's some special additives into it to keep everything in suspension. I think the composition is also different. However, slip trailing is a thing. So I'm going to basically do a hybrid between these two. Here are the pots I'm going to try things out on. This one here is leather hard. I slip cast it yesterday and it's actually pretty firm, but it's still damp. This one is bone dry. It's been sitting around for a while. It's got some colors on the outside. That's because I slip cast this into a mold that had a different color in it before. These are just some oxides. I'm not really worried about the color of the pot. I want to see what happens when I put the slip on the outside. And this one here has been bisque fired. Reading about the commercial underglazes, it seems that they've been formulated to be able to apply to any of these. I'm not too sure my slip is going to apply very well to this pot. I think I can put it on just fine, but the clay is going to shrink as it dries and goes through a bisque firing, and I don't know that it will adhere properly to this pot. But I figured I might as well try. If I can apply it successfully to some bisqued pots, that just opens up that many more doors for me. So low percentage of success, but we'll try it anyways. And then last but not least, we need the slip. This slip is the same I used to cast all these pots. What I've done is I've added some mason stain to it. I've added black mason stain. I went and measured the weight of the slip, backed out the water, and added approximately 4% by dry weight of mason stain to the clay body. I then added some extra water to this so it's extra runny. So I think like these experiments, I'm going to go ahead and apply some tape to these pots and see what happens when I remove the tape, if I can selectively remove this slip from the pots. I'm going to start with this pot here. It is the wet one, so I'm most concerned about the tape sticking to it, and I'm going to use a relatively thin tape and just do an easy pattern. All right, just like that. We'll loop it around a few times. Next is the bone dry pot. We'll go ahead and do the same thing. This one is sticking much, much better. And then last but not least, the bisque pot. And again, the tape applies very easily here. It's also nice and sturdy, so I don't have to worry about breaking the pot. Okay, all the pots are prepared now. So let's go ahead and apply the slip. I've got a brush here. In general, I don't like brushing things on, but I think it's going to be the best option here. And I have not done this before, so we will see how it goes. I'm just going to paint a nice big band around the middle and try not to drip. All right, so there's the first one. That worked out pretty well. Next is the bone dry. All right, this one absorbed the slip a lot easier, not surprisingly since it's drier. And finally, the bisqued pot. It's going on a little bit harder than the bone dry one. All right, cool, that's all three. I think I'm gonna let these sit for just a minute and then do a second coat off camera. These have sat for a while and my poor man's underglaze has dried. I don't think I want to put on more than 2 coats. This is slip after all, and I am building up a thickness by applying each coat. Let's go ahead and see if we can remove the tape. So I got one end, and I think I should just be able to pull this off. All right, there we go, and I think just like with the glaze, I did get some leakage underneath of that. I'll do the next one. All right, that one came off a lot easier and a lot more cleanly. So I think the leakage is related to how well the tape is stuck down, and so that comes down to the surface I'm trying to stick the tape to. If it is powdery or wet, it sticks less well. All right, and the last one, bisque pot. All right, and that came off pretty cleanly as well. I might let these dry the rest of the way and maybe do a little bit of touch-ups, we'll see. So clearly these pots are all in different stages. This one is still damp. This one's dry. but both of them are greenware, and then this one's bisqueware. So once the surfaces are all dry and this pot's dried out the rest of the way, these two will need to go into the bisque. I think I might go ahead and put this one into the bisque fire again. It's been bisqued once. However, it's going to fail with the adhesion of the slip to the bisque pot. And so if I bisque it again, we'll see if it sticks. These have all dried out. So this is the one that was leather hard. On some of these, the application is a little bit rough, so I think I'm going to spend a minute and do a little bit of sanding to try and get it a little bit more even, and then I'll put them into the bisque fire. So this is some really fine sandpaper. Let's try and knock off some of the high spots. I'm not sure how much this will show through the final glaze, so I figured I might as well. Yeah, this is pretty rough. All right, that's better. All right, these should be ready to go into the bisque firing. We had a successful bisque fire. Here are all three pots out of the bisque. And one thing I noticed right away is they all look basically the same. This is the pot that was originally leather hard, and indeed some of these lines are a little bit wavy, just like we had going in. There's still some uneven surface finish in the applied slip. This is the one that was bone dry. It worked well. And the one I was most fearful of at this stage was the bisque pot. This one looks like the slip adhered just fine. So that is good to know. It looks like I can probably apply my watered down slip as a pseudo underglaze to bisqueware and refire it. Next up for all these pots is glaze. I have a fresh batch of gloss glaze. Let's go ahead and use it. So for all these, I'm just going to glaze the inside with the gloss by itself. So to do this, I need a sponge. And give the pot a quick wipe down, get any dust that might have settled in there out. And this is just some clean water. And I could not do this to the pots before. All of my slip would definitely have come off. And it seems very well adhered to all of these. Getting maybe just a touch here on my sponge, but it would be catastrophic if I had done that before the bisque. So I got a small measuring cup here. I'm going to pour some on the inside. Practice my technique of rolling the pots around. I always manage to run out halfway. All right, that's the inside, and the outside's wiped down, so now they can go in for a dunk. These glazes dry super fast on the bisqueware. It's really nice. All right, and that's all the glazing. I'm gonna let these dry out a little bit longer and then touch up any glaze that needs to be touched up. Next stop, glaze firing. The glaze firing is done and the pots are out. Here they are. I feel like playing a shell game with you to mix them around and see if you can tell the difference. Usually when I'm doing my test, I'm looking for rather significant differences. Here, they are very, very subtle. So can you guess which pot is which? So they're actually in the same order. So this one here was the leather hard, and you can see where my slip application was a little bit sloppy with the tape. The black from the slip came through just fine. There's a little bit of a surface finish to it, or I can feel the slip and the ridges. Not too differently from this pot, I can feel this. Maybe this one's a little bit more smooth. So that was the leather hard, this was the bone dry. Again, it looks very similar. The lines are definitely more crisp. So it's easier to get better defined shapes. And the bisque pot seemed to work pretty well too. This one has a defect, so I don't know if you can see on camera. So there's actually a little bit of a crack right here that's running through. I think it's just the black slip. It doesn't show up on the inside at all. I didn't notice this when I pulled it out of the bisque fire for the second time, but it's definitely there now. I don't think you would really notice it unless you're looking very closely, but it's present. I noticed another one somewhat similar on this pot. There's some very faint lines here that I'm wondering if that is the black slip separating. Overall, I'm very happy with these. So can you make underglaze from slip? Well, no, not really, but I think we can get some somewhat similar effects. By thinning out the slip that had mason stain in it, I was able to paint it on. I was able to do some tape resist to be able to pull the slip selectively back off. Given this experience, I don't think putting on the leather hard clay is the right thing to do. Just from this one experiment, it looks like the best thing to do is to put it on the bone dry. And in a pinch, I can also put it on my bisque fired pots, but there may be more risk for failure. Time will tell. I'm going to call that a successful test. If you have any ideas for what I should do with this type of technique on my pots, let me know down below. Likewise, let me know if you have any other questions or comments. Thanks.